Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I cannot see you, but I hope you can hear me. And thanks for inviting me. Uh, I've been following as a policy advisor in the European Parliament for several political groups, the Environment Committee. Therefore, that's why I am here to give you a short presentation about the content and the main criticalities represented by one of the, let's say, flagship initiatives, implementing initiatives of the Green Deal, and notably the Farm to Fork strategy, which is the regulation, the new regulation on sustainable use of plant protection products. Next slide, this is just the title, please. Okay. Here we have the core of the regulation, which is the target. The aim is to reduce to half the use of chemical plant protection products, which from now on I will call PPPs, just to be short. The regulation, the targets are national based, so we have national targets, and in detail, there are two different targets. So we have the national 2030 reduction target 1, which is about use and risk, and the target 2, which is about the use of the more hazardous PPPs. All of these must be cut of the 50% by 2030, which is the reference basis for calculating this 50%. Is the average of the 3-year period 2015-2017. Next slide, please. Critical issues. So first one, next, is the reduction targets. So we have the very same target on national basis, which penalizes the more advanced member states in reducing the use of chemical pesticides. And moreover, the weighting criteria are badly designed for 2 reasons, essentially. The first is that they do not take into account enough the different crops and climate conditions across the EU. And the second is the increasing surface to be cultivated with organic methods leads paradoxically to an increase in use of copper and sulfur-based pesticides. Next one, please. So then we have the national action plans. National action plans through which the member states must implement the reaching of this target, which is the essential content of these plans. Information relating to the reduction targets for at least 5 active substances which had the greatest impact on the high use of PPPs in the 3 years preceding the adoption of the plan. Detailed information on the expected progress. Information on the estimated annual amount of illegally used PPPs. Mandatory national measures to encourage the use of non-chemical methods by professional users through financial incentives in accordance with state aid legislation. The measures envisaged and taken to support or ensure through binding obligations established by the national law, the innovation, development and use of non-chemical pest control methods. As you can see, is a really burdensome bureaucracy, very much detailed plans, let's say, following the business as usual European Commission style, no? But the first and the main question that raises from here is where to take the financial resources to implement these national plans, all this bureaucracy, by instance, from the rural development programs which are already in place, or by the funds of the next common agriculture policy. Then next one. Third aspect, the criticality, is the integrated pest management. Here, I just take you as an example the obligations referred to the crop files. Again, a long list of tasks. At least 9 months before the validation of the files, the member states disseminates the files for a public consultation among the stakeholders. Then the member state submits to the Commission a draft measure taking into account of the comments received during the public consultation. Then the Commission, when notified of this draft, may, within 6 months of the receipt of such a draft, oppose its adoption by the member state if it considers that the draft is not compliant with the regulation. If the Commission raises objections, the member states refrains from adopting the draft until it has amended the text so as to remedy the shortcomings identified in the Commission's objection. And also there is a similar procedure even for a simple update of a crop file. Again, as we can see, is a heavy burdensome bureaucracy and a too rigid scheme for a dynamic system such as agriculture. And paradoxically, again, some of the techniques suggested by the Commission aiming at reducing the use of pesticides, such as direct sowing and conservative working, require a larger quantity of PPPs. Next one, please. Fourth and last main criticality is about the use, storage, and disposal, and in particular, the use in sensitive areas, so-called sensitive areas. As designed, again, the bureaucratic procedure for granting the use of PPPs in the so-called sensitive areas is too much burdensome both for the competent authority and the user. And notably in Natura 2000 sensitive areas hosting crops. And we have many. For example, I come from northern Italy and we have many of such natural areas hosting crops. And also areas set out in Annex 4 of the Water Framework Directive should fall under the sensitive areas, thereby including nitrate vulnerable zones, which cover the larger part of cultivated areas in several member states. Again, I can take the experience of northern Italy in particular, but this is the situation in several member states. Next one, please. So why the proposal is unfit? Basically, I'll give you 8 reasons why. The first one, please, next. It does not take into account the profound environmental, agronomic, and productive differences of the various European areas. The different needs in terms of pesticides between the extensive crops of Northern Europe and those with high economical and social added value of the Mediterranean area are not considered at all. Second, voila, it does not take into account the absence of usable alternatives in terms of either sustainable molecules or new genomic techniques, the consequent absence of defense against vulnerabilities linked to climate and or phytopathology would cause drastic drops in production with the consequent aggravation of global food insecurity. I have to say here that with the Green Deal, generally speaking, but with the Farm to Fork strategy more in particular, the EU is planning a, let's say, shortage in food, in our food security, and in a larger extent in the world's food security. They are planning famines across the world. Third reason, please, next one. It does not take into account the very serious effects of eliminating production that in some specific areas would derive from the total prohibition of the use of pesticides in the so-called sensitive areas, as we saw before, including nitrate vulnerable zones already widely monitored and regulated. So here we have also, let's say, a high risk of over-regulation. Then fourth one, please. It does not include any equivalence clause to be applied in trade in agri-food products with third countries. In other words, imports into the European market should be allowed only from countries that adopt equivalent programs for the reduction of pesticides, which this should be a basis of our commercial policy, but we know that it's not always the case. And of course, the higher environmental standards you have, the higher are the costs, and so the less, let's say, competitive are the food you place into the market. Fifth one, please, next. It does not take into account the virtuous paths already taken in terms of sustainability by various countries, by several member states. Growth and diffusion of the organic method, integrated production, and technological progress. So here again is more about a one-size-fits-all approach, which is really unfit for the agricultural sector. Next one, please. It arbitrarily takes into consideration as a reference a period coinciding for some member states with adverse events of exceptional seriousness, which have led to a greater use, both in terms of quantity and activity, of the substance. I am mentioning, for example, the incidence of the Xylella fastidiosa for the olive oil trees in, let's say, in the Mediterranean Europe, in southern Italy. And, for example, Drosophila suzuki and brown marmorated stink bug. These are main three, let's say, problems that affected hugely our agricultural sector in the last years. And of course, we have no, obliged to use more pesticides, of course, when there is an infection across our crops, and then this is not taken into account at all. Next one, please. It does not include any index related to the actual wholesomeness of the food products and the correct agronomic management of the individual active substances. Example given, the presence of residues in the products and active substances in the environment. Next one. It does not take into account the profoundly different systems for registering the use of pesticides between countries. I take you some examples. Some countries, such as Italy, are also equipped with electronic registers, while in other countries, paper registration is not even mandatory. So there is a wide and huge, let's say, difference of approaches and situation across the member states, which is not taken into account at all. And then we can conclude that we can make the same consideration with regard to the sales registration obligation. So this is my short presentation about this proposal for regulation, which has, as we can see, several serious problems, several serious issues to be solved. We hope that during the legislative process, the two co-legislators, so Parliament from one side and the Council, so the member states, the governments of the member states on the other side, can look into them and try to improve this proposal, which otherwise would have, we hope also without, let's say, too much ideological approach, which is affecting, generally speaking, all the Green Deal, the issues linked to the Green Deal, and let's see what happens. But now the ball is in the field of the co-legislators, and it's the only way to improve this proposal. Thank you very much.